the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled today is singer-songwriter Peter Paula and author, arts advocate, art dealer Molly Barnes. Peter Paula is a songwriter, musician, and performer. As a young boy living in Riverside, California, music seemed to fill your life. What kind of music was it?
Oh, all styles of music. I mean, from the time I was young, my brother was playing, records of Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles and Elvis Presley, and we would emulate bands and, always aspiring to be rock stars ourselves one day.
Did you go out and see live performances?
Yeah, and I was in bands in the LA area, playing in clubs, and growing up with my father who was in the theater, I accompanied him and in the orchestra as well. I played flamenco guitar at 16.
Did you take lessons for everything, or did it come naturally?
My first conscious thought of life was playing this little guitar and singing, and always wanted to be on stage. And
how little was it?
Like 2 or 3.
You were 2 or 3 years old?
My first memory of life. It is.
Really?
Yeah, really. So.
And was your brother older than you or younger?
My brother was 4 years older than me.
So he was quite an influence on you.
Yeah, he had muscular dystrophy, and throughout life he always, kind of forced me to do things that he couldn't always do. And when I hit about 12, he was starting to get kind of weak, but he continued to, go ahead, go with it, play guitar, learn how to play lead guitar, sing.
Was he musical?
So very.
So
Yeah.
did he help you, or did you both just have natural ears?
I always just remember being able to hear and emulate what I heard, whether it was on piano or the wind instruments or, mostly all instruments that I could pick
And your
up.
father, you said your father was a performer.
Yeah, my father still is. In fact, he just got done traveling with a company that did, he's been doing Fiddler on the Roof. He's been playing Tevye since '73.
Oh, so he sings.
Yeah,
so
he's an opera singer.
This is where the voice comes from.
Yeah, it's genetic. He definitely gave me that.
Well, what about singing opera? Did you ever
he
study
trained
for
me,
that? Did you?
And I was in musicals as well, like Oliver Twist, and so I got to perform in the theater.
So did he help you actually as far as giving you
He,
singing lessons, or did you take him at school?
He'd give me singing lessons. I mean, he's definitely a singer, but actually when I was about 12 years old, 13, he used to come to me and ask me to show him how to do stuff on the guitar.
Really? So you picked it up right away?
Yeah, as long as I can remember.
Now, we know you haven't signed, haven't got a contract, you haven't signed, you have a management, Shrink Management, and Michael Roche, who is very important in the music field, have been helping you. But what does a young person like you do in order to get a contract or make it or perform?
Well, about 6 months ago, Scott Gladstone, who is Shrink Management and my dearest friend, he said, "You really have something here." And I always knew that one day, it would come to be. My faith in God said, "You'll do it. Just keep playing and writing the music." And he said, I have to think about this, but he says, I know that through my contacts and I know people in Hollywood, we can get you a record contract. So it was even back then that we started talking about Michael Roach. And
what happens when a person like you has to find a manager? You have to find someone who believes in you, I guess. Is that the first step?
Yeah, money, someone who believes in you, and Michael Roach has been great.
What about money? I mean, does it help you? You make a demo, or you go into the studio, or?
Yeah, I've made a demo, and I still have more songs I want to record. Michael and I had a meeting the other day with a gentleman who's a bigwig in the music industry, and he was very excited about the song I'm about to play for you, and he said I'm pretty much guaranteed a record contract, once we get things recorded and documented and start shopping record deals.
But so you have to have talent, first of all. And then you have
Not
to
necessarily.
Well, maybe that's
In
right.
my case, yeah.
Maybe, Peter, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it helps. I feel like I have talent. I've been working on it for years, and it's noticed by some individuals now in the industry that are excited about getting me a record deal.
You write a lot of your own music.
I write it all. Yeah.
All of it?
Mm-hmm.
How does that come? How do you get the music on paper, or do you write the actual lyrics and the music?
I just recently started putting down all the music I've had in my head, and it just comes to me. And I emulate what I hear in my head, and then sometimes I just pick up the guitar and start singing and playing, and a song happens.
And then do you write it down?
I just start writing down my songs. I've got almost 40 songs written down now. And up until about 2 weeks ago, I had maybe 3 or 4.
Is that right?
So I'm just now putting them all on paper that they're in my head.
Oh, you had, say, 30 or 40 songs already that you had in your head, but now you're getting them down. Do you keep remembering them? Do they change?
Yeah, sometimes I'll be sitting there playing a song, and all of a sudden, like a ghost, a song comes into my head that I forgot about from a while ago that's still good, you know, and I'll play that and work on it and sharpen it up.
And do you compose on the guitar? Do you compose on the piano or the keyboards?
I have composed stuff on the piano and keyboards, but primarily the guitar. But it all comes from my head. You know, I hear the orchestra in my head. I hear the backup singers.
What I was going to say, do you hear the violins? Do you hear the drums?
I hear it all. Yeah, I've got other music in my head that's just dying to come out.
Could you write parts for all of those different?
I understand like tablature, and as far as like writing actual music, I stopped doing that years ago, and music teachers would get frustrated with me because my ear would just pick up so much, and I could play, and I preferred that. And they used to get frustrated with me and say, "Oh, you didn't do it exactly right." You know, like Parajaka. You know, I used to throw in this, you know, I used to go off, and my music teacher thought I was nuts. You know, so I stopped reading music and back then and writing the actual music and just primarily keeping it in my head.
Well, you have a song you're going to sing for us today, which is really asking too much of you, I think, because we didn't have the proper, I mean, we're not a studio. You're just going to show us, if you were sitting in our living room, what you could do. Don't blast us out. Tell us a little bit about it, though.
Well, this song actually came to me a few months ago. I was living in Vegas, and I was getting ready to leave Vegas.
Were you performing up there?
I never got interested in performing there because unless you were a top 40 lounge act, the bands there are very grungy, punky, noisy. And I could never really come up with any musicians from Vegas that I was interested in actually getting a band together with. But I kept writing and doing my own thing and basically playing to the 4 walls in my bedroom or bathroom, which has got great acoustics. And this song I'm about to play just came to my head. It's called The Enemy Song, and I actually wrote it in the bathroom.
Okay, The Enemy Song.
So here it is.
Do you take your guitar with you everywhere?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Okay, here we go. I'll be what I want to be, and you can be the enemy. You can get the best from me, anything you want, you see. You could be my enemy tonight. Yeah. I could be your enemy, but I'm not afraid of you running away from me tonight. Tonight won't be tonight. Won't get the best from me. Yeah. All I really want is you. All I wanna be with you. All I really need is you. All I wanna have is you. Tonight won't be tonight. Won't be the best of me. You can be the enemy, or you can get the best from me. I can take what I want from you, anything you want me to. You could be my enemy tonight. Yeah. I could be your enemy, but I'm not afraid of you running away from me tonight. Tonight won't be tonight. Won't get the best from me. All I really want is you. All I want really need is you. All I really want is you. If you would open up your eyes and let the kindness seize the day. If you would open up your minds and let the kindness lead the way. Yeah, yeah. If you want me, if you really want me, if you want me, if you really want me, yeah, open up your eyes.
Ooh, wow, we do want you. We really do want you. We're going to open our eyes. That was great. Yes. Now, while we're waiting for you to be a star, and while you were on the Joan Quinn Profiles first before you went and did any other shows or any other TV people, you'll be on the morning show next, and we'll say you were here first. What are you doing in the meantime so that you can live? You're a bodybuilder?
Well, actually, I have had a part-time job with Sharon Lubin, a wonderful lady. She owns a Great Earth health food store.
Oh.
I pretty much lost my job because I had to be here today and I blew her out.
No,
but no,
no,
she understands. She wishes me the
you
best.
were a trainer, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in bodybuilding. I was competitive for quite a while. When I was 50 pounds larger, and
Really?
yeah, I won the Palm Springs national show and trained people for a while. But right now, primarily shrink managements keep me alive. And,
Kickboxing. You're a kickboxer.
yeah, I've done Muay Thai kickboxing and a little bit of modeling and whatever I could do.
Well, we're gonna
sold insurance.
You've done it all.
Mortgages.
Keep playing.
I used
though.
to ask for quarters on the pier in Huntington Beach so I can get a burrito and an Orange Bay.
Oh boy, I don't think we can relate here. Thank you, Peter, for being with us.
Thank you.
And thanks for singing for us. And don't go away. We'll be right back with Molly Barnes. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with author, arts advocate, art dealer, Molly Barnes. Molly Barnes is a native Angelino who went to Marlborough School for Girls and graduated from UC Berkeley with a Bachelor of Arts. Even though she studied acting and art, she felt more comfortable on the other side as a dealer. Why was that, Molly?
I hate rejection. I think that to be an artist, to be an actor, to be an actress, you've got to put up with so much rejection. I hated it, and I remember consciously making a decision. I want to be in some sort of power thing, so nobody can hurt my feelings.
So this is the power thing, being an art dealer is the power
Another
thing?
time I remember reading a Georgia O'Keeffe biography, and she said that she locked herself up in the Shelton Hotel in New York for 3 days and had an art show only for herself of her own work. And I thought, I could never spend that much time in a room by myself. And I remember thinking at that time, it'd be better for me to be out in public than trying to paint and compete with Georgia O'Keeffe.
So you did open a gallery then?
I opened a gallery in 1967 after working for a number of dealers.
And you had a gallery in Los Angeles.
I had a gallery here for 18 years on La Cienega, discovered a couple of people who became very successful.
Well, that's one of the questions. I know you wrote this book, How to Get Hung, which I love.
Do you like the cover?
I love the cover, and I think the idea of how to get hung is tenfold what happens in the art world in many, many ways. How did you pick the artist to show in your gallery?
I think when you're an art dealer, you have maybe 5 specific reasons for picking an artist. 1, you hope they'll make money, although that's never the first. 2, do you personally like the work? 3, has it been done before? If an artist comes to me with a painting of an American flag, I say, that's great, but Jasper Johns did it. 4, is it going to bring people in who haven't been in your gallery before? And 5, is it going to bring in critics who are going to write about the gallery?
But how, on the other hand then, this is probably advice to the artist, how do they go and find the gallery?
Well, do you remember Chuck Arnaldi, who we all knew, who was younger than we were? You and I knew each other in school.
Yes, I went to the other girls' school.
Yeah, you went to Westlake. Chuck Arnaldi worked as a mover and drove a truck and moved things and got to learn the art world.
So that's must be one of your tips.
Okay, here are my tips if you want an art dealer. If you're courting a dealer, 1, go to art openings, go to art galleries by yourself. Don't take a husband, don't take a wife, don't take a friend who's going to distance you. 2, hang around. Never take your slides to an art opening, but just get to know who the players are. See if that's a gallery that will like your work. If this is a gallery that handles blue chip people or a gallery that handles dead artists, forget it.
Right, let's talk about blue chip. You're really talking about an emerging artist.
Absolutely.
And that's a person who maybe has never had a show, who's graduated from art school, and who is painting or sculpting or whatever, but can't really get his work out
right.
there.
It also could be somebody
But
who's
blue chip, just define that for us.
Oh, blue chip would be somebody whose work sells for over $3,000, who's had shows not only in art galleries locally but nationally, has been in a museum show, even in a group show. Somebody who the establishment has deemed as okay.
So that already is a cutting point.
Absolutely, over $3,000.
So go on.
Okay.
So he hangs out and sees the lay of the land.
Okay.
Also, you look for a dealer who really appreciates your work, I guess.
Yeah. Now, the best approach I ever had was a very young guy who was great looking. He kept asking me if he could take me to his studio, and it's very hard for a dealer to get out. So he sent a limousine for me. He had a driver. In the back, he had champagne and brie. He had a videotape of himself. And unfortunately, the work was not that good once I got to his studio. But that's the kind of thing I think you have to do. When you're courting a dealer, it doesn't hurt to send flowers every once in a while, say nice show, or send balloons. Or the most important thing is to find an ingenuous way to get them to your studio.
Also, I guess, to let yourself be known. If you're doing all of the things you're saying, that dealer is going to remember you.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, it may never gel. That relationship may never gel, but you're always in a position to recommend him or her to someone else.
I wanted to tell a story. I was trying to court William de Kooning, the painter, who's a blue chip painter. I wanted to get to know him. I couldn't figure out a way. I was living in East Hampton, Long Island. But finally, I thought he likes Marilyn Monroe. When I was young, I looked a little like her. And he goes to the post office every day at 10:30. So I just planted myself in front of the post office every day at 10:30 in my little blue dress and my little bare feet. And finally, at the end of 10 days, his driver came over and said, "Mr. de Kooning would like to meet you." And I thought, I did it right.
And
I think feminists hate that. And I can see why, but the idea is you have to go with what you've got and make an effort to appeal to a person.
It's really a matter of planning it.
Absolutely.
Of choreographing your moves, and I think that's what artists should have to do. I talked to Billy L. Bankston the other day, and he said, "No, you don't have to have a gallery. You have to paint just for yourself. You have to be there painting, and if the work is good, it's going to get out." What do you think about having a gallery? Do you think it's necessary?
No, I don't think it's necessary. I think Billy L. Bankston is a performer. I think all of the art business is show business. I hate to demystify it, but I think Billy performs better selling his own work. I've gone there with clients. He whips out the red carpet. He's a fabulous raconteur. He loves to entertain, and he has the time for it. Most artists don't.
But so that's another alternative method of getting your work out, by doing it yourself or getting people into your studio or showing it. What other kind of spaces?
Tips? Okay, I think if you cannot get a dealer, if you cannot get one, if you've tried every avenue and you can't, you can always go to your children's school, ask if you can have a show there. You can go to church if you're a member of a church and ask to have a show there. You can rent a space in a hotel. You can trade. You can go to somebody like, well, Arnold Ashkenazi on Wilshire, across from the county. Ask if you can hang some things there. You can go to the art rental gallery in our county museum. I've even bought art in car washes.
What about car washes? That's an interesting thing because they always have those waiting rooms. What about restaurants? That became very trendy.
Well, restaurants is good. The problem with restaurants is that unless you have an expert, you need an expert to sell art. people are going to say, gee, that's great, and then go to someplace else and buy something that looks like it. So you've got to have a pro there to help you, or just know that it's going to be shown, and then hopefully you'll get another show.
Or just to know it's shown. The other thing that I always thought was great was being in a window display at a department store or at a small storefront, and have your bio there, and then maybe people
That's
would
a great
be
idea. I
interested.
forgot about that. In New York, you and I both spent a lot of time in New York. The Upper East Side, all the movie theaters now have art shows. I couldn't believe it.
in the lobby.
Right in the lobbies, yeah.
And I think the point is, over here at the screening room on Rodeo, he has art shows up all the time.
And remember Tony Bill, when he had the screening room in Venice, you'd see this great art, you'd think, how did this happen?
And that's just what I think. It's there, you see it, it's subconscious, you have a bio. If you're interested in it, then you can go on and continue. One thing, we were talking about being in New York, you're curating, well, I think
that's a good alternative space.
I think this is very interesting. It's an alternative space, it's a hotel, which isn't so out of the ordinary, but the hotel seems to be just totally into art. You walk into the hotel and everything has an artist's point of view.
Thank you.
And it's called the Roger Smith Hotel.
And it's in Midtown Manhattan. And I was looking for a job in New York. My husband was working there, and I saw this odd ad in the New York Times wanting an art curator in a hotel. And indeed, the owner of the hotel was a sculptor from Yale who had inherited this place and wanted to make it an art hotel. It had been a transient hotel. When you'd say the Roger Smith, people would kind of go, raise their eyes. But we went in and really made it an art hotel. Art is everywhere.
Art is in all the hallways, art is in the rooms, art is in the entry. But you did something else. He moved out and opened a space, opened a gallery.
Yeah, he had a corner that was empty on the corner of 47th and Lex, and so he let us move in there and do a gallery there. And also, we have lectures. I found that there was such resistance on the part of the hotel staff to get behind me that I started bringing in famous critics, artists, historians. I've had Hilton Kramer, Arthur Danto, Clement Greenberg, and it's great. And we have people come in, we give them a brown bag lunch, and we invite out-of-towners to come and participate.
But that's up almost in the penthouse.
Yeah.
You have a beautiful room upstairs. Now, the other thing that you had invited me over to is actually right in the restaurant. The walls are painted, murals on the walls. I don't know if
the owner of the hotel did that.
The owner did that. And you had an artist table, one big, wonderful pine table with something like Clifford, who does our flowers, beautiful flower arrangement in the middle. And you said that artists came to eat, they could get lunch for half price?
Absolutely. If they eat on something that doesn't require a tablecloth and a napkin, I mean, that's how they judge it. Then you can pay half price, and that's, I guess, artists if they know that.
But it's kind of like a round table in a way. They all start discussing things and talking.
That's exactly right.
You, besides doing all that, I know you have so many hats that you wear. You're a broadcaster.
I am.
And you have is it a weekly show?
For
An art
years, I was
show?
on Pacifica, KPFK, WBAI, and I'm at large now.
But
NEA
what were
has
you
cut it out.
doing? What were you doing?
When I had that show, I would interview artists, I'd interview critics. I think art is it's not for everyone, because those of you who don't love it, you get bored. But
Well,
those
wait.
of us who love it love to talk art.
Stop there, because one of the questions is art only for the elite?
Absolutely not. I think that when pop art came in the 60s, suddenly we saw an art you could enjoy with absolutely no background. You could see something, you'd say, wow, you'd see the soup cans by Andy Warhol, you'd see the American flags, you'd say, this is great.
But that's for them to appreciate. What about the first thing that someone could buy?
When people buy art, I think it's really important to set a limit and say, if I can spend, usually people buy on trips, because that's when the husband and wife are together. But I think when you start buying, you buy from your gut, but eventually you find a dealer, somebody you like who's going to guide you and say, well, this thing on velvet is great, but you might consider some.
Do you think you should, well, I don't think it should ever be looked at as a mistake.
Or an
the
investment.
First thing, or an investment, because once you buy something, if you like it, then you grow.
Absolutely.
Or you don't grow, but you still have something that's yours, and you've put your time into it, and you like it.
Being in interviews for so many years, I want to ask you, but I won't. I won't turn the tables. But I think the first thing I bought was something like a Robert Frost poem, The Woods Are Weary, Dark and Deep, and I thought, oh, this is so deep. And then a week later, I was yawning. So I got into things that were more difficult.
I did the same. I bought something up in
Mendocino?
yeah, Pebble Beach. And it was something, though, that reminded me of like a personal thing, and I could never get rid of it. It took me a long time to actually get rid of it. And you learn, you just move from there. And I think the way we both feel is when you see art, it's a gut reaction.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the way to buy art.
I know what I like. That's the anathema of good art, when people say, you can't tell me this is art. Or they look at something and say, oh, I see an elephant there. You know, they're not quite ready to make that jump, you know, into an abstract idea. But I think art for us, at least for me, it's very soothing. When I go to the County Museum, which I do quite often, and look around, suddenly I feel I'm at home. I'm not alone. Death is not so frightening. I can get through this life, and that's what art does for me. The first thing that I looked at that really touched me deeply in terms, I actually cried, was a George Geyer sculpture. And I saw this piece, and I've never been able to figure it out. And I took slides of the work. If I look at the slides, it's different. But the work itself has a profound effect on me, an emotional effect.
And I think we should stop at that point, because I think you have taught us so much today, and the viewers have learned so much about art and what to look for and not to be afraid of it. And everyone should.
Can I make a plug for my book?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I wanted to say that Journey Editions in Boston.
And you can buy it anywhere. It's at the County Museum, it's at MoCA, it's at all the bookstores.
I think Journey Editions is great because they've really gone into making good art books. So
you think so?
Yeah, I really do.
Thank you.
And thanks for being with us. Keep writing. We love your letters, and we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles. Thanks, Molly.
That's it.